Hey, everybody. Have you ever found yourself worrying about what other people think of you? Yeah, I do too. From my appearance to my work performance, even how I run my business, being in front of people all the time makes it kind of hard not to. But why do we care so much about others' opinions? Well, that's what this episode is about. So I dive into the root of this worry, how it affects us, and most importantly, some things that you can do to help overcome it. We'll explore why we seek the validation and the cultural pressures that shape us and how to discern whose opinion, if anyone's, really matters. So together, let's unpack this fear of judgment and learn to embrace humility, which is the secret sauce to overcoming worrying about what other people think and just finding more freedom to be yourself. This isn't about ignoring what others think. It's about understanding it and choosing how it impacts us. I hope you enjoy. Welcome to When Does It Get Good? I'm your host, Zovig Garboushian. And today I am talking about why we worry so much about what other people think of us. Why do we spend so much time concerned with other people's opinions about who we be and how we do things? Now, I am in front of people a lot, whether it's training teams or speaking in front of large groups. My job is being with and in front of people. And I will confess that I can worry about what other people think of me, how I'm doing, what I look like, if I said the right thing, if I made a difference, if they liked how I did what I did. And knowing what I know, I don't think it's possible that we can escape that experience entirely. We are human beings. We are wired to survive. Part of that is looking around, seeing that there are other people around us, and knowing that they will have thoughts and opinions about who we are and how we show up in the world. I wish there was a trick to eradicate this behavior entirely. I don't think that there is, even after a lifetime of meditation. I don't know that it's entirely possible to remove that behavior entirely. But what I do know is that we can learn to pull ourselves out of those moments faster and have them not affect us as much. But it is a practice. So that's why in this episode, I'm going to cover a little bit about why we worry about what other people think of us, but also spend some time talking about some things that you can do to help mitigate or reduce the amount of time and emphasis that you put on what you think other people are thinking about you. So first, let's talk about why this happens. Why do we give a shit at all about what people think of us? And it's a big question. And there are both some obvious answers and some not so obvious answers. Obviously, this is different for everybody based on circumstance and experience. But I do think that there are a couple of general themes for people that are worth noting and maybe will sort of relieve you a little bit, because I know for me, when I get into this headspace of having worry or concern about what other people think of me, it feels like it's only me. And so I not only have the worry, but then I also beat myself up because I'm worrying. Why can't I get over this? Why is this still an issue for me? So hopefully learning a couple of these reasons will let you know that you're not alone. The first reason I know that this happens, why we spend time worrying, is because we are taught to care. We are taught to worry. From a very young age, sit up straight, comb your hair, don't look like raging lunatics. We don't want anyone to think anything bad about our families. We don't want anyone to say anything about us at the school and during the pickup times. It can come from things like our culture. Different cultures value different things. Culture can value achievement and career and our physical appearance, where we went to school, where we lived, how much money we had. And we learn to do things a certain way in our family experiences because we don't want people to have bad opinions about us. Because if they have bad opinions, then we might not be included in things. We will be talked about. We might be the laughing stock. So being a first generation Armenian, typically, you don't move out of the house until you're married. Also, typically, who you marry isn't always up to you. It's not just about your preference. Now, thankfully, my family was much more progressive than that. I'm one of four women, four children. All of us are women. I am the eldest. And my dad's side of the family, who was more traditional than my mom's side, had a lot to say about how we were raised and the choices that were made about what we did growing up. Now, my sisters and I all moved out well before we even came close to marriage, traveled, went to college. A couple of my sisters have master's degrees, and we did all of this before even considering marriage. And that was kind of a clutch your pearls moment with my extended family. They were always gasping a little bit off to the side when they would see another one of us move out, or that we were 23 and not married yet. And I know that my mom struggled with what they thought, even though she still had no intention of putting those old rules on us. She still struggled with what they thought. So we learned to keep things quiet and between us and our family and not say too much because we just didn't want to give people gossiping fodder. So how your family works and how your family teaches you to be with other people, and how your family teaches you to hear and take in what other people say will certainly affect how much and when you worry about what other people think. As a general rule, society kind of says fit in or get out. And that's a hard thing to push against. And I see it getting a little bit easier. I see it with younger millennials and Gen Z. I'm seeing a lot more you do you mindset and messaging that's out there. But worrying about what people think, it starts at a really young age. So you're not alone with that. Another reason that we worry and we are always taking in what other people think or even making up stories about what we think others are saying about us is because the way our world is set up, people can make decisions about what we have and don't have based on what they think of us. Will I get hired? Will I get the small business loan? Will I qualify for that mortgage? Will I be invited to join this event or speak at this conference? Will people want to be with me if they find out this thing about me? Will I be accepted? These are not easy barriers to bump up against. And yeah, we have to take into account that how we show up might not work for everyone all the time, and we might miss out on things simply because of what people think. And so no one wants to be the bad person, to be the person that rocks the boat, the person that shakes things up, the one that goes right when everybody else goes left. Even though there's so much out there about doing your own thing and taking the road less traveled, it can still be hard to get to a place in your life where you feel totally comfortable diverging from the pack. No one wakes up wanting to be seen as the bad person. We don't want to be seen as unlikable. We don't want to be seen as imperfect because that makes us vulnerable. And as a general rule, humans will do whatever we can to ensure that our vulnerabilities are disguised because we don't want to be exposed. It can feel dangerous. And what if no one likes me? And what if I end up alone? That's the stuff that's like the background noise, the undercurrent, the foundation of why we worry. Because what if I end up alone? Now, how much we care about others' opinions of us depends on a lot of variables. The level of willingness that you have to disregard others' opinions compared to my willingness is a spectrum. So let's say the spectrum goes from 0, which is not caring at all in any circumstance about what others think, to 100, which is caring about every raised eyebrow or thought or opinion. I would venture to guess that most of us kind of land in that middle chunk, sort of sliding a little to the left and to the right, depending on the circumstance. By the way, I don't think it's necessarily a good thing to not ever care what anyone thinks. That 0 on that spectrum, not caring at all, that's also called a sociopath. We need to understand others' opinions and how we're showing up. We need a reflection from others so that we know how we're seen, so that we can learn more about who we want to be and make choices. But we can't just drive the truck blindly and let the bodies fall off the back. The inflection point is how we interpret what they think of us and what we do with the information. And that is what sets one person apart from another. One person could see a raised eyebrow and think, that's odd. Let me ask and see what's going on. They could get really curious. They could be really interested. And another person could see that same raised eyebrow and think, oh no, I said something wrong. What are they thinking? What did I miss? And they start to stumble over their words, or they say too much, or they shut down. So having some sense of what others' opinions of you are and what you do and how you do it is important. But what you do with it, if anything at all, is what makes the difference. Because by the way, you don't actually have to take all opinions into account. Not all feedback is good feedback. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. So those are a couple of sort of general reasons why we might spend more time than we need to worrying about what people think of us. So how do you stop it? Well, first I want to say, I don't know that you can stop it entirely. I think that because we are human beings, like I said, we are wired to survive. This is just sort of part of who we are. I think the goal is more about lowering the amount of time we spend and the intensity of the experience in that worry and shifting it from worrying what other people think to simply considering what they think. One is a self-awareness behavior. Considering what other people think is self-awareness, responsible, emotionally mature behavior. The other, worrying about what other people think, is strangely indulgent and can chip away at you as a person. Your job, again, is to go from the worry to the consider. So here are a couple of ways to do this. First, pick and choose whose opinions you are interested in. Whose opinions matter, because it isn't everyone's. It isn't every person at work. It isn't every person on that committee that you sit on. It isn't every friend, and it is not every family member. It's the people who you know will give you honesty because they want the best for you. It's the people that you respect. It's the people who you see putting themselves out there in the world, doing things themselves. It's the people who are doing things that mirror or align with your values and who you are. It's not people who just agree with you or are going to be nice to you. It's people who will be an honest mirror. So you might have a boss who really has your back and wants you to succeed. That is an opinion to listen to. That 25-year friend that has seen you go through your whole career, the ups and downs, building a family, that might also be a great opinion to take into account. Your brother's new girlfriend, why do we care? That peer at work who seems to want to share unsolicited advice or opinions all the time, who gives a shit? So be selective and discerning about whose words you invite in and give weight to, and put blinders on when it comes to those who you know are offering you opinions or thoughts that are not valuable. And by the way, even if you get opinions from people who you know well and respect and know have your back, you can still choose to disagree. You simply say thank you and move on. Next, if the opinions or the feedback that you receive is not actionable, meaning you can't do anything with them, dump them. Let them go. As an example, after every training session I lead, a survey goes out to the participants and I get all kinds of feedback, and some of it is critical feedback. So I look at those opinions and I have to ask myself a few questions. One, is this actionable? Meaning, can I do anything with this? Can I actually take what they have said and put it into practice the next time I do this training? And the next question is, if I took action, will it make me or the situation better? And that's a discerning point for me. That's my opinion. I look at the feedback and go, okay, if I did that, is that going to make this more valuable, or is this just a style thing? Is this just a preference? And you get to decide. I also consider who's saying it. Like I said, be discerning about whose opinions you take into account. I look at who said it. A lot of times the surveys are anonymous. Sometimes they're not. And when they're not, I always look at who said it. And if it's coming from a person who was trying to poke holes or intentionally being a contrarian or was looking at their phone the whole time, because that happens too, I may choose to disregard that feedback. So who are you getting the feedback from? Who are you getting these opinions from? And is what they're saying actionable? Can you actually do anything with it? And if you do something with it, will it make you or the situation better? So those are the first two. And this next one is my favorite. It is not so tactical or tangible. It's not a quick fix. People will tell you that, you don't have to worry about what they think. Stop worrying about what they're saying. Don't let the haters get you down. You just need more confidence. Oh, they're just jealous of you. You're better than they are. That's really great cheerleading. But that's about all it is. And cheerleading, while sometimes it can pump you up and get you out of a spiral, cheerleading doesn't really have lasting effect. The secret is not about building yourself up. The secret to letting go of what other people think is humility. It's the understanding that no one person is any better or any worse than you. And truly knowing that, like in your bones, believing that you are no better and no worse than anyone. To be clear, I do not mean being self-effacing. I do not mean diminishing the value of all that you do and bring to this world. And I do not mean making yourself invisible. Humility does not mean invisibility. We still have to show up and participate. And we still have a responsibility to be fully ourselves and contribute everything that we have in our lives. That's how life gets good. That's when things get good, is when we are able to fully be ourselves and know who we are. You can do that and still be humble. What I mean about humility is the belief that you are no better and no worse than anyone else. And that's where the real work gets put in. Because we live in a world of comparison, of scores and rankings and reviews and looking at last year compared to this year and that guy compared to this guy and numbers and likes and all the things. A lot of this worry that we have about what we think other people think, and I say that because a lot of times we're just making up stories, like we're just in our own heads. A lot of this worry that we have can be diminished if we start to unravel the belief that hierarchy is truth, that there is a better than and worse than when it comes to people. It's not truth. It's made up. That's not to say that hierarchy doesn't have a purpose. It's a way of organizing things, like at work, for instance. So if you work at Pepsi, which has 300,000 employees, not all of them can be leaders. It just does not work. You have to have some level of ranking and hierarchy. People have different roles, have different jobs. But where we get caught is that we think that because someone has a title or a role or is higher up, then they're better. Because they have something more than I do, they're better than me. I'm worse. Or because I have something more, or I went to school here, or I came from this place, or I had this experience, I'm better. No. We are equal. We are all human beings. And humility is understanding that there is no better or no worse. So my husband and I traveled to Belize last year for a vacation, and we took this really beautiful food tour. And the tour guide was this young guy who was super knowledgeable, not only in the food, but he also taught us a lot about the culture and everyday life in Belize. And we started talking about politics, which comes up so often these days. And we started talking about the prime minister of Belize. And he said, oh yeah, we see him out and about all the time, getting lunch, walking around, talking to people. We talk to him. We tell him our opinions. We complain to him. He's just a regular guy like the rest of us. And that's because we don't worship our leaders. It was a subtle, yet very profound message. And my husband and I looked at each other and we smirked because we knew exactly what he was getting at. Someone who is higher up or put themselves in that position or somehow got to that place. And it's not always through work and merit, by the way, but someone who looks to be higher up doesn't mean they're better, and it doesn't mean we're worse. And you, if you are higher up or have more, are not better than someone else. But dismantling that belief within us is hard work because it is ingrained in everything we do. But listen up. When I am humble, I don't need someone else's approval. If we are humble, we can spend less time proving ourselves and more time being ourselves. And humility takes work. You got to take your ego out of the game. You got to cut through the zero-sum thinking. You have to drop the perfectionism and allow yourself to be flawed and know that it means nothing about the quality of who you are. To be humble, we have to know that we are not what we do. So anytime we're pretending to be something we're not, or trying to fake it till we make it, or I don't know, bolster ourselves in some artificial way, that's when we start to get caught up in what other people think, because we're not being ourselves. Anytime we're trying to be something we're not, we're going to be looking over our shoulder or questioning that raised eyebrow. Worrying about what other people think is a bad habit and a coping mechanism. And what it does is it distracts us. It distracts us from our mission, from going after what we want, from pursuing our dream, from creating the life that we are interested in. And we allow ourselves to be distracted because if we're not going after what we want, then that means we can't fail, because what if we fail? So that keeps us safe. It also keeps us small. And that's a choice point that every person has to face. Do I want to be safe and small and constrained by what other people think? Or do I want to go after what I want to go after? So we talked about why we tend to worry about what other people think, and 3 things that you can do to start to lower the intensity and the frequency and the duration of those moments when you can get caught up in the stories that you create about what other people think of you. And with that said, I hope that that gives you a little bit of relief and a little bit of validation that you are not alone, and that even, with any amount of work, professional or personal development work you do, you can still get caught in that stuff because we are imperfect and we are human. And honestly, that's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to have to constantly check myself, to remind myself, no better, no worse. I can take that. I can leave it. I think those are the moments that I practice the most agency over myself. So when I see myself going down that spiral of being concerned about what other people think, I get the chance to remind myself, no, I'm good here. This is my swim lane. I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing. Stay focused. Don't let myself get distracted. So with all that said, I wish you humility, and we'll see you next time in a couple of weeks for another episode. Until then, take good care, lots of love, and big energy.